Here's a video about games with weird structure. So weird structure in terms of the gameplay or in terms of the objective. So not to say that these games are bad or anything, but they do have some unique structure within the game. Please like, share, subscribe, share the video all over. The first one here is going to be one that I have talked about before in the past, Secret Agent Clank. So Ratchet and Clank is one of my favorite franchises of all time. I definitely probably top three in terms of my favorite franchise. But Clank Secret Agent does take a different approach to the Ratchet and Clank formula. This one is more, it's like a stealth-based QTE style game. So, you play as Clank, you're a Secret Agent Clank, and then you're trying to free Ratchet from prison. It is actually very interesting. However, the gameplay is different. So this is not your typical run-and-gun style gameplay of Ratchet and Clank. It's more of a stealth style game. And stealth for a sci-fi game of this nature is very rare. So you basically play as Clank and you perform stealth areas and then a QTE segments. The game is very weird, unique in that you have to do these areas in order to progress. You get used to it more and more and more, but if you're not a fan of, say you're not a fan of stealth or QTE, right, stay away from this game because it's going to have a lot of those elements in it. Next one is Stuntman Ignition. So Stuntman Ignition, you think it's a racing game where you race other racers or competitors, but Stuntman is literally about stunts. So you're performing car stunts. Kind of think like a behind the scenes action Hollywood movie where there's crazy car stunts, right? So this one has it so there's a film crew, right, following you, and you gotta perform stunts in specific ways. The game is very specific in how you do the stunts. Now, there'll be stunts that go up a ramp, like a ramp a certain way. You perform like a U-turn a certain way, drift a certain way. If you get more than 5 fails per per sequence, you gotta restart the whole sequence over again. There's bikes, there's muscle cars, police cars, there's even trucks. There's explosive environments, destructive areas. But it is one of the first, I think Burnout 3, one of the Burnout games had something very similar to this. A side mission very similar to this game where you'd also perform stunts. But Ignition is definitely a unique racer. Another one is going to be Chrome Hound. So Chrome Hound is a game where you play as a mech. It's like a third person kind of a shooter style game. You play as this giant mech, but it is very unique in terms of the structure because you have to follow a coordinate specifically on a map. So, it sounds very simple. It sounds very, very, very simple. But however, it is unique because it's how you do it. So say like, you gotta walk to a specific point in the map. For example, if it's F5 and 1B, so you have to walk to that specific part in the map to activate the next objective or to destroy a certain target, which can be a tank, like an enemy mech or some soldiers, like, for example. Now it does, it is a little bit confusing in that some of the markers, some of the areas that you go to, there are no enemies present, and I say, okay, what the hell is this? This is big, wide open, this big empty space. But yeah, Chrome Hounds is gonna have some of that weird, unique structure to it. The last one's gonna be Anarchy Reigns. So Anarchy Reigns, right, is like an action style game, right? The action style game with lots of challenges. Now, however, with this game, it is unique and weird because you cannot do actual main missions or story missions until you have completed challenges, right? So the challenges, they're very quick, right? Defeat, X amount of enemies like in a certain area in order to complete a challenge. It is a very easy game. It is very straightforward, but it is unique in that you cannot progress unless you fill up at the XP meter bar, which will unlock at the next level, which will indeed give you access to the next main mission, a main story mission.